Welcome, and let the world grow soft and quiet around you now. As your breathing slows all on its own, imagine drifting gently outward from the earth, past the moon and the little rocky worlds, until a vast and banded giant glows warmly into view. That great striped world is Jupiter, the largest planet of them all, and tonight, instead of circling it from afar, we will drift slowly downward into it, layer by gentle layer, following the long and dreamlike fall from its highest clouds toward its hidden heart. There is nothing at all you need to hold on to now. Just breathe and let go and let yourself sink softly with the story. Welcome back to Beyond the Stars. The first fact is that Jupiter is the largest planet in our entire solar system, a vast and gentle giant that dwarfs every other world circling the sun. And to imagine falling into it, we must first understand just how enormous the thing we are falling into truly is. It is so grand and so wide that all the other planets gathered together could be tucked softly inside it, drifting quietly within its enormous embrace. A whole world of gas and cloud and crushing depth, waiting far below, with no shore and no floor to ever meet us as we descend. Think of it this way. If the Earth were a small marble, Jupiter would be a great beach ball beside it. And tonight we are drifting slowly down into that beach ball, deeper and deeper, letting its immensity fold gently around us as we go. The second fact is that Jupiter is a gas giant, a world made mostly of hydrogen and helium, the two lightest and simplest elements there are. Roughly 90 parts hydrogen to 10 parts helium, much like the sun itself. And this is the first strange truth of our fall. For a gas giant has no firm surface at all, no ground on which a traveler could ever stand or land. Only a great swirling ocean of gas that grows gently thicker and darker and heavier the deeper down toward its heart you would go. So that to fall into Jupiter is to fall, quite simply, without any end. There is no rock beneath the gas, no hidden land waiting far below to catch a traveler at last. Only more and more of the giant, growing heavier and warmer, all the way down to a heart that is itself more like a smothered ember than any solid ground. The third fact is that Jupiter is truly immense across, measuring about 139,820 kilometers from one side to the other, roughly 11 times wider than our own Earth. If you began at the very top of its clouds and fell straight down toward the center, you would have to travel nearly 70,000 kilometers, a distance many times the whole width of our planet. A fall so long and so deep that it staggers the quiet imagination, and one we will make together tonight, slowly and softly, in nothing more than our minds. The fourth fact is that Jupiter is also astonishingly heavy, holding about 318 times the mass of our whole planet Earth. A weight so immense that it gently governs the motions of nearly everything around it. And all that mass means a powerful pull, a gravity that would seize any falling traveler and draw them inward with growing and unhurried force, so that once you had crossed into Jupiter's realm, there would be no drifting back out again, only the long descent inward, deeper and deeper into the gentle and enormous dark. The fifth fact is that Jupiter is more than twice as massive as all the other planets in the solar system combined, every one of them added together. So that if you gathered up Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, and all the rest into a single pile, Jupiter alone would still gently outweigh them. It is the undisputed giant of our sun's quiet family. And this is the world we are about to sink into, a planet so heavy and so vast that everything we know of falling, of weight and depth and pressure, is carried here to an almost unimaginable extreme. The sixth fact is that Jupiter is the fifth planet counting outward from the sun, resting far beyond the rocky little worlds and the asteroid belt, at a distance of roughly 778 million kilometers, about 5 times farther from the sun than the Earth. So far out in the cold that its skies are dim and its clouds are frigid. And as we begin our long-imagined fall, remember that we are descending into a world of the deep outer dark, where sunlight is faint and thin, and where the warmth comes not from the distant sun, but from somewhere deep within. The seventh fact is that a single year on Jupiter, one full and patient journey around the Sun, takes about 11 and 86/100ths of our Earth years. So slow and so wide is its great orbit. Across the age of the solar system, this gentle giant has circled the Sun only a few 100 million times, while we have hurried around it far more often. And in all those long, slow orbits, its deep interior has remained hidden, unseen, unchanged in its essential shape, waiting patiently in the dark for the story we tell of it tonight. The eighth fact is that despite its tremendous size, Jupiter spins faster than any other planet in the solar system, whirling all the way around in only about 9 9/10 hours, so that a single day there passes in less than half of one of ours. This dizzying spin matters a great deal to our fall, for it stirs the whole atmosphere into its famous bands and belts, great rivers of wind circling the planet, which any falling traveler would have to pass through first of all, buffeted and carried sideways even as they were drawn gently and steadily down. The ninth fact is that Jupiter has no solid surface anywhere, no crust of rock or field of ice on which a spacecraft or a wandering soul could ever come to rest. And this is perhaps the strangest and most important truth of our whole journey tonight. On Earth, to fall is to eventually meet the ground. But on Jupiter, there is no ground to meet. Only gas giving way to denser gas, and denser gas giving way to fluid, so that the fall simply continues, softer and heavier at once, down and down toward a heart you can never quite arrive at. The 10th fact is that Jupiter is made of much the same material as the Sun itself, mostly hydrogen and helium gathered long ago from the same great cloud, which has led some to call it a star that never quite ignited. Had it been perhaps 80 times more massive, its core might have grown hot enough to kindle nuclear fire and become a small, dim star, and our solar system might have had 2 suns instead of 1. But it fell short, and so remained a planet, a vast and gentle ball of the same stuff as the stars, glowing only faintly with its own quiet inner warmth. The 11th fact is that Jupiter is named for the king of the Roman gods, the ruler of the sky and the greatest of all their deities. And to the ancient Greeks, the same bright planet was Zeus, the wielder of thunder high above. It is a fitting name for the largest world of all, a giant that lightning truly does play within. For deep in its clouds, real bolts flash and crackle, far mightier than any storm on earth. And so tonight we fall gently into the realm of the Sky King, down through the very clouds where his thunder is born. The 12th fact is that Jupiter is one of the brightest points of light in the whole night sky, easily seen with your own unaided eyes as a steady, gentle glow, brighter than any star. For thousands of years people have watched it drift quietly among the constellations, never knowing what churned beneath its distant golden face. That calm point of light you might see tonight through a window is the very same world we are falling into now. And it will keep on shining, patient and bright, long after you have drifted softly off to sleep. Through even a small telescope or a steady pair of binoculars, you can see its little disk and the 4 bright moons strung beside it. The very same sight that first met Galileo's eyes, for centuries ago, when he began to understand that we were not the center of everything. The 13th fact is that Jupiter actually gives off more heat than it receives from the distant sun, glowing gently with warmth born deep inside itself. A leftover heat from its formation, and from the slow, endless squeeze of its own colossal gravity. This inner warmth is the furnace that waits at the bottom of our fall. For as we descend, the frigid cold of the cloud tops will give way, degree by degree, to a rising heat that pours upward from the hidden depths, until the deepest layers glow hotter than the surface of the sun. This is one of the great gentle secrets of the giant, that it is warmed far more from within than from without, radiating nearly twice as much heat as it ever receives from the distant sun, a world lit softly by its own ancient inner fire. The 14th fact is that Jupiter is circled by a great family of moons, with around 95 of them now known, more than almost any other planet, and the largest of them, Ganymede, is bigger even than the planet Mercury. As we fall inward past Jupiter's realm, these little worlds drift far above and around us, faithful companions to the giant. Icy Europa with its hidden ocean, fiery Io with its endless volcanoes, and mighty Ganymede and Callisto, all circling patiently in the dark while we sink alone toward the clouds far below them. Ganymede is so large that it would count as a planet in its own right, were it circling the sun instead of the giant. And beneath the ice of Europa lies a salt ocean that may hold more water than all the seas of Earth combined. The 15th fact is that 4 of Jupiter's largest moons were discovered by Galileo Galilei in the year 1610, when he first turned his small telescope toward the giant and saw 4 tiny points of light shifting from night to night beside it. It was one of the first hints that not everything circled the Earth, a quiet revolution born of patient watching, and those 4 Galilean moons still swing gently around Jupiter today, exactly as they did then, keeping their slow and faithful vigil over the vast banded world we are about to enter. The 16th fact is that Jupiter has its own faint set of rings, thin and dusky, made of fine dark dust rather than the bright ice of Saturn's, so delicate that they were not discovered until a spacecraft drifted close enough to see them. As an imagined traveler approaches from afar, these ghostly rings would be among the very first things to pass, a faint shimmer of dust against the black, a soft and almost invisible threshold, marking the outer edge of the giant's realm, before the long and gentle plunge toward the clouds truly begins. The 17th fact is that Jupiter possesses the strongest magnetic field of any planet in the solar system, an invisible force reaching out millions of kilometers into space, vast beyond easy imagining. This great magnetic bubble is not made at the surface, but far below, in a hidden ocean we will reach much later in our fall. And it wraps the whole planet in a mighty, unseen cocoon, trapping charged particles into fierce belts of radiation that any traveler would have to cross, long before ever reaching the gentle clouds. The field is many times mightier than the Earth's own, and its influence is so vast that, in a sense, our fall into Jupiter begins the moment we cross into its unseen magnetic reach, still far out in the empty dark. The 18th fact is that because Jupiter is not solid, you could never truly stand upon it, nor sail across it, nor plant a single footstep anywhere. A thought that feels strange and dreamlike to the mind. To visit Jupiter is only ever to fall into it, to become a part of its endless descending gas. And this is why our journey tonight is a falling one, a slow and weightless sinking rather than a landing. There is no arriving on Jupiter, only the drifting down, ever gentler and ever deeper, into a world that has no bottom for us to find. The 19th fact is that Jupiter's gravity at the top of its clouds is about 2.5 times stronger than the gravity you feel here on Earth, so that a person who weighs a certain amount at home would feel more than twice as heavy there. This steady, powerful pull is what would draw a falling traveler ever inward, gaining speed and weight as they sank. A firm but unhurried hand, guiding the long descent downward, deeper into the layers of cloud and gas that grow thicker and warmer with every kilometer we fall. The 20th fact is that everything we have gathered so far, the size and the mass, the spin and the warmth, the lack of any ground, all points toward one gentle truth about falling into Jupiter, that it is less like a plunge and more like a slow dissolving into an endless sky. And with that quiet understanding, we are ready now to begin the descent itself. So let your body grow a little heavier against the bed, let your breathing slow a little more, and imagine us drifting inward now, toward the very first threshold of the giant, its great invisible field of magnetism. The 21st fact is that long before a falling traveler ever reached Jupiter's clouds, they would first cross into its magnetosphere, the vast bubble of magnetism that surrounds the whole planet. A region so enormous that, if you could see it glowing in the sky from Earth, it would appear several times wider than the full moon. Its long magnetic tail streams away from the sun for hundreds of millions of kilometers, farther than the orbit of Saturn. So that our fall does not truly begin at the clouds at all, but far out here in this invisible and immense magnetic sea. If our own eyes could see magnetism as a soft glow, Jupiter would hang in the sky far larger than the full moon, a great luminous bubble many times its own width, a giant shining not with light, but with the quiet reach of its hidden field. Within that bubble, charged particles are swept up and flung around the planet at tremendous speed, glowing and crackling in the dark, so that the whole region hums with an invisible and ceaseless energy. The 22nd fact is that trapped within this great magnetic field are Jupiter's radiation belts, zones of charged particles whipped to tremendous speeds, among the most intense and dangerous places anywhere near a planet in the solar system. Here, protons and electrons race along the magnetic lines, crashing and glowing in the dark, and a traveler falling through would meet them long before feeling any cloud or wind. These belts are the giant's first and fiercest guardian, a silent storm of energy that no living thing could safely pass, encircling Jupiter far above its gentle face. The 23rd fact is that the radiation around Jupiter is so severe that it would prove lethal to a human being long before the clouds were ever reached. A sobering truth at the very start of our imagined fall. The particles would flood the body with more radiation in mere hours than a person could ever withstand. Which is why, in gentle honesty, no living traveler could truly make this journey. And so we make it only in the mind, where no harm can follow us down, drifting safely through belts that would, in truth, be utterly impassable, softened here into a story for sleep. The 24th fact is that Jupiter's swift rotation, whirling around in under 10 hours, causes the whole planet to bulge outward at its equator and flatten slightly at its poles, so that it is not a perfect sphere, but a gently squashed one. You can even see this subtle flattening in a good telescope from Earth. As a traveler falls inward, this spin means the world beneath is not still but racing, its equator sweeping around at many kilometers every second, a vast and steady turning that stirs everything above and below into motion. The 25th fact is that this same rapid rotation is what organizes Jupiter's atmosphere into its famous pattern of bands, alternating stripes running parallel to the equator, light zones and dark belts, circling the planet endlessly. The spin draws the winds into these great parallel rivers, some flowing east and some flowing west, so that a falling traveler descending toward the clouds would see, spread out below them, not a chaotic jumble but a strangely ordered world of stripes, each one a mighty current of wind, turning and turning in the pale golden light. The 26th fact is that Jupiter is crowned at both its poles by shimmering auroras, glowing curtains of light far brighter and more powerful than the northern lights we see on Earth, and unlike ours, they never fade away, burning steadily year after year. They shine in colors our eyes cannot quite see, high in the ultraviolet, painting the giant's poles in ghostly, ceaseless fire, fed by the planet's mighty magnetism and by material streaming in from its volcanic moon. A traveler falling toward the poles would drift down through this eternal light, a soft and silent radiance in the dark. The 27th fact is that much of the material feeding Jupiter's auroras comes from Io, its innermost large moon, the most volcanically active world in the whole solar system, forever erupting, spewing sulfur and other gases into space. This material spreads into a great glowing donut of charged particles circling Jupiter, called a plasma torus, which slowly rains down along the magnetic lines onto the planet's poles. So even the light at Jupiter's crown is a gift from one of its restless moons, a reminder that the giant lives always in the company of its wandering children. The 28th fact is that as a traveler approached, Jupiter would swell steadily larger in the sky, from a bright point of light to a small disk, and then to a vast striped wall filling the whole view, its bands and swirls resolving into breathtaking detail. There would be a moment when it stopped being a distant object and became, instead, an entire world, a horizon in every direction. And from there, the fall would feel less like flying toward something and more like being slowly, gently swallowed by a sky that had grown impossibly, beautifully huge. The 29th fact is that the first spacecraft ever to visit Jupiter was Pioneer 10, which flew past the giant in December of 1973, a small, brave machine that survived the fierce radiation to send home the first close portraits of the banded world. It was soon followed by its twin, Pioneer 11, and together they proved that a spacecraft could cross Jupiter's dangerous realm and live. Every image we now hold of the giant, every dream of falling into it, began with those two tiny travelers, drifting bravely past into the dark, so long ago. The 30th fact is that in 1979, the two Voyager spacecraft swept past Jupiter in turn, capturing the giant in stunning and unforgettable detail, revealing its swirling storms, its faint rings, and the astonishing volcanoes of its moon Io for the very first time. The Voyagers did not stay, but sailed onward toward the outer planets and, eventually, the stars themselves. Yet in their brief passing they transformed a distant striped point of light into a living, churning world, one we could at last begin to imagine falling into layer by layer. The 31st fact is that a handful of other spacecraft have glimpsed Jupiter along their journeys, borrowing its mighty gravity to fling themselves onward to more distant places. Among them Ulysses, on its way to study the sun's poles, and the great Cassini probe, which swept past in the year 2000 on its long road to Saturn. Each used the giant as a kind of gravitational slingshot, gathering speed from its enormous pull, and each, in passing, added another gentle brushstroke to the portrait of the world we are drifting down into tonight. The 32nd fact is that the first spacecraft to truly stay at Jupiter, settling into orbit around it rather than merely flying past, was the Galileo mission, which arrived in December of 1995, after a long and patient voyage from Earth. For years it circled the giant, studying its clouds and moons and mighty magnetism up close, and it carried with it a small companion probe, one built to do the very thing we imagine tonight, to fall directly into Jupiter's atmosphere. We will return to that brave little probe and its remarkable descent much later in our journey down. The 33rd fact is that today, a spacecraft named Juno still circles Jupiter, arriving in 2016 and looping around the giant in a long, careful path that dips close over its poles, deliberately weaving through the safest gaps to avoid the worst of the deadly radiation. Juno peers deep beneath the clouds with its instruments, mapping the hidden structure far below the surface we can see. And much of what we now understand about Jupiter's deep interior, the very layers of our fall, comes from this patient watcher, still drifting faithfully above the giant as you rest tonight. The 34th fact is that Jupiter's mighty magnetic field is not made at its cloud tops, but generated far, far below, in a strange and hidden ocean deep within the planet, an ocean we will reach only near the very end of our long descent. There, an exotic form of hydrogen behaves like a liquid metal, conducting electricity as it churns and flows, and that churning is what wins the giant's great magnetism into being. So even the invisible field we cross first, out here at the beginning, is truly born at the bottom of our fall, in the deepest dark of all. The 35th fact is that Jupiter has no clear edge, no single line where space ends and the planet begins, for its atmosphere simply grows thicker and thicker with depth, fading imperceptibly from near emptiness into gas, and gas into fluid. Because of this, scientists choose a reference level, the depth where the pressure equals the air pressure at Earth's sea level, and gently call that the beginning of the planet, a quiet agreement, a marked doorway in a world that truly has no doors. And it is toward that soft imaginary threshold that we now continue to fall. The 36th fact is that as a traveler drifted inward, the very first physical thing they might pass would be Jupiter's faint ring of dust, a thin dark veil encircling the planet far above its clouds. So delicate it can barely be seen even up close. These fine particles are thought to be flung up from Jupiter's small inner moons by tiny meteor strikes, a soft haze of grit, forever circling the giant. To pass through it would be to cross an almost invisible boundary, a whisper of dust marking the outermost reach of the world before the great fall truly steepens. Unlike Saturn's bright and icy rings, Jupiter's are dark and faint, so shadowy that no one on Earth even knew they were there until a passing spacecraft caught them backlit by the distant sun. The 37th fact is that above the clouds lies a cold and tenuous outer haze, the thin uppermost reaches of Jupiter's atmosphere, where the gas is so sparse it is barely there at all. A gentle fading gradient rather than any sudden wall. Here a falling traveler would feel the first faint touch of the planet's air, the merest thickening of the emptiness around them, the earliest sign that the great dark shape below was no longer merely a distant world, but something they were already softly beginning to enter. The fall inward has, by now, quietly begun. The 38th fact is that, curiously, the very top of Jupiter's atmosphere is far hotter than scientists once expected. Warm to hundreds of degrees, though it lies so far from the sun, a long-standing puzzle of the giant. Some of this heat may drift upward from the auroras, and some may rise as waves from the storms far below. A mystery still not fully solved. So a traveler's fall would begin, strangely, by passing through a warm and rarefied upper layer, before plunging into the deep and bitter cold of the cloud tops waiting just beneath it. The 39th fact is that even from a great distance, spacecraft have detected lightning flashing within Jupiter's clouds, immense bolts crackling in the deep water layers far below the visible surface, some far more powerful than any lightning that strikes on Earth. These storms glow and flicker on the planet's night side, brief sparks of light in the vast dark, hinting at the turbulent, electric world a traveler would soon be falling into. The giant is never truly still or silent within, but alive with thunder, waiting quietly beneath its calm and golden face. The 40th fact is that with the rings passed, the outer haze crossed, and the warm, thin upper air left behind, our imagined traveler now arrives at last at the true beginning of Jupiter's visible self, the tops of its great cloud decks, spread out below in endless bands of cream and gold and soft brown. Here the light is pale and cold, the winds begin to stir, and the long fall steepens toward the deep. So take one more slow, easy breath, and let us drift now down into the clouds themselves, into the frigid and beautiful roof of the giant. The 41st fact is that the tops of Jupiter's clouds are astonishingly cold, hovering at around -145 degrees Celsius. A frigid, bitter chill far colder than anything found in the harshest winter on Earth. This is where our traveler first meets the visible planet, drifting down into a frozen sky of pale cloud. The cold here is deep and still, the sunlight thin and weak. Yet it is only the beginning, for as we sink deeper, this bitter cold will slowly, steadily give way to a rising and relentless warmth pouring up from below. The 42nd fact is that the highest clouds of Jupiter, the ones we see glowing in the pale light, are made of frozen ammonia, tiny crystals of ammonia ice drifting in the frigid air, which is what gives the topmost cloud decks their soft, whitish appearance. On Earth, our clouds are water. Here at the top of Jupiter, they are something far stranger and more alien. A sky of frozen ammonia. A falling traveler would first pass through these delicate white crystals, a gentle veil of ice, the outermost skin of the giant's endless and beautiful atmosphere. The 43rd fact is that a little deeper down, beneath the ammonia ice, lies a layer of clouds thought to be made of ammonium hydrosulfide, a compound that may lend Jupiter some of its rich browns and oranges and tans, the warm colors that stripe its face. These deeper clouds are hidden beneath the white ammonia above, glimpsed only where the upper layers thin and part. As our traveler sinks past the first frozen veil, they would drift into the second, darker layer, the air growing slightly warmer and thicker, the colors deepening softly all around them. The 44th fact is that deeper still, perhaps many tens of kilometers below the top, scientists believe there lies a layer of water clouds, the most Earth-like part of the whole giant. Clouds of water, some frozen and some liquid, much like the storm clouds of home. It is here, in these hidden water clouds, that Jupiter's mightiest lightning is thought to be born. So as our traveler falls onward, they would pass from ammonia ice, through ammonium hydrosulfide, and down at last toward these deep water clouds, each layer a little warmer, a little denser, a little darker than the last. The 45th fact is that Jupiter's stripes are divided into what scientists call zones and belts. The bright, pale zones and the darker, ruddy belts. The light zones are regions where gas is gently rising and cooling, forming high, bright ammonia clouds, while the dark belts are places where gas is sinking, revealing warmer and deeper layers below. A traveler falling through a zone would be borne gently upward against their descent, while one falling through a belt would be drawn more swiftly down. The whole banded sky a slow machine of rising and falling air. The bright zones sit a little higher and colder, capped with fresh ammonia frost, while the dark belts lie a little lower and warmer, where we can peer a touch deeper into the giant. So that even the colors of Jupiter's stripes are a quiet map of which way the air is moving, up or gently down. The 46th fact is that the winds within these bands are ferocious, racing along at speeds of up to around 600 kilometers per hour, faster than the strongest hurricane that has ever crossed the Earth. Yet strangely, these winds are also steady and enduring, flowing in the same great channels for decades or longer. A falling traveler would be swept sideways by these mighty jets even as they sank, carried around the planet at tremendous speed. And yet, in our gentle imagining tonight, we drift through them softly, feeling only the vast and patient motion of the giant's turning sky. Unlike the winds of Earth, which are stirred mostly by the warmth of the sun, Jupiter's mighty jets are fed as much by the heat welling up from deep within, which is why they blow so steadily and endure so long year upon quiet year. The 47th fact is that neighboring bands on Jupiter often blow in opposite directions, one great current racing east while the one beside it races west, so that along their shared borders, the winds tear past one another in long ribbons of swirling turbulence. These boundaries are where many of Jupiter's storms and eddies are born, spun up by the shearing of the winds. A traveler falling near one of these seams would drift through curling whirls and gentle chaos, the air twisting slowly around them, as two vast rivers of wind slid endlessly past each other in the cold. The 48th fact is that the beautiful colors of Jupiter, its creams and golds, its rusts and browns, remain something of a mystery, arising from trace chemicals whose exact nature is still not fully known. Compounds that scientists gently call chromophores, the color bringers. When sunlight and energy touch these substances, they paint the clouds in warm and subtle hues. So as a traveler falls through the layered sky, the colors shifting around them are the signature of chemistry we do not yet completely understand. A quiet reminder that even the giant's lovely face still holds secrets waiting to be known. The 49th fact is that despite all their churning and their ferocious winds, Jupiter's great bands are remarkably stable, holding their positions and their patterns for years, decades, even generations. so that the striped face you might see through a telescope tonight looks much as it did to astronomers a lifetime ago. The individual storms come and go, but the overall pattern endures, a strange and beautiful constancy in a world of endless motion. The very same belts and zones that a stargazer might sketch through a telescope tonight were sketched, in nearly the same places, by astronomers 100 years ago and more. The giant holding its stripes with a patience that outlasts human generations. A traveler falling through would find, in the midst of all that wind, a deep and ancient order, patient stripes that have turned quietly for ages. The 50th fact is that scattered across Jupiter's banded face are countless smaller storms, swirling white ovals and pale spots drifting slowly among the bands. Vast rotating tempests, each one often larger than a whole country on Earth. Some spin for years before fading, while others merge and grow. These white ovals are cooler, higher clouds, gentle-looking from afar yet immense beyond measure. A traveler drifting down might pass one of these great spinning ovals, a slow white whirlpool of cloud kilometers deep, turning peacefully in the cold air of the descending sky. The 51st fact is that among these smaller storms is one sometimes called the Little Red Spot, a reddish oval far smaller than the giant's most famous storm, yet still enormous by any earthly measure, born from the slow merging of several white ovals that gradually turned a rusty red. It shows how the giant storms live and change over time, growing, merging, and shifting color across the years. A quiet reminder, as our traveler falls, that Jupiter's atmosphere is not a fixed painting but a living, breathing thing, forever rearranging its great and beautiful patterns. The 52nd fact is that the spacecraft Juno has detected strange forms of lightning high in Jupiter's clouds, and even hailstones of a curious kind, sometimes called mushballs, made of ammonia and water slushed together, falling through the giant's atmosphere. This shallow lightning flickers far above where scientists once thought Jupiter's storms could reach, revealing a world even richer and stranger than imagined. A traveler falling through these layers might drift past soft flashes of light and slow-falling icy slush, the giant's own peculiar weather, gentle and alien, playing quietly in the deep and drifting air around them. The 53rd fact is that as our imagined traveler enters the clouds, they would feel the wind's buffet and carry them, yet still find no ground beneath, nothing solid to catch or hold them. Only more cloud, and then more air opening endlessly below. This is the deepening strangeness of the fall, to be surrounded by weather, by cloud and wind and storm, and yet to keep descending through it all. There is no floor here in the clouds, no shore beneath the sky. The traveler drifts on down, carried gently by the wind, sinking ever deeper into the giant. This is perhaps the hardest thing for an earthbound mind to picture. Weather with no world beneath it, storms with no ground below, clouds that give way not to land but to yet more sky. A place where falling is the only thing there ever is to do. The 54th fact is that as the clouds thicken around a falling traveler, the pale sunlight would slowly dim, the bright golden day fading toward a soft and deepening twilight. For the deeper one sinks, the more the light from the distant sun is scattered and swallowed by the gas above. The world would grow gently darker with each kilometer of descent, the cheerful colors of the cloud tops muting into shadow. And so the fall carries the traveler not only downward but into a slowly gathering dusk, the light of the outer world receding softly overhead. The 55th fact is that at the tops of the clouds, the pressure of Jupiter's atmosphere is roughly the same as the air pressure we feel at sea level here on Earth. A gentle, familiar weight. But this is only the very beginning, the lightest touch of the giant's atmosphere. For with every kilometer of descent, that pressure climbs relentlessly higher. A traveler falling from the cloud tops would begin in air no heavier than a breeze at home, and end, far below, crushed beneath a weight so immense that no earthly experience can prepare the mind for it. But that lies still far ahead. The 56th fact is that a traveler does not so much fly through Jupiter as fall through it, drawn ever downward by the giant's powerful gravity, more than twice as strong as Earth's. A steady, patient pull that never eases. There is no thrust needed, no engine, no effort at all. Only the surrender to the descent, sinking softly through cloud and wind and gathering dark. The gravity does all the work, gently and inexorably, guiding the fall deeper and deeper toward the hidden heart. An unhurried hand, drawing the traveler down into layers no living eye has ever seen. The 57th fact is that the air of Jupiter, were a traveler somehow able to sense it, would be nothing like the air of Earth, being made almost entirely of hydrogen and helium with only faint traces of ammonia, methane, and other gases mixed in, utterly unbreathable, and rich with strange and pungent chemistry. It is a sky no lung could ever draw, a beautiful, alien atmosphere meant only to be fallen through, never breathed. And so our traveler drifts down through this exotic air in silence, a gentle ghost passing through gases older than the Earth itself. These same gases, hydrogen and helium, are the most ancient in the universe, forged in the first few minutes after everything began. So that to fall through Jupiter's air is to fall through the very oldest substance there is. The 58th fact is that Jupiter's storms are not flat, but tower to tremendous heights, some of their cloud tops rising many kilometers above the surrounding decks, vast thunderheads dwarfing any storm cloud on Earth. A traveler falling near one of these towering storms would see it climbing high into the sky above them, a mountain made of cloud, and then, continuing down, would pass alongside its deep and shadowed flanks. These are storms measured not in kilometers wide, but in tens and hundreds of them, immense and slow, drifting through the endless banded air. The 59th fact is that at Jupiter's poles, the spacecraft Juno discovered something wholly unexpected. Great clusters of cyclones arranged in strange, orderly geometric patterns. A central storm ringed by 8 or more others, holding their formation for years like a slow and stately dance. Nothing quite like it exists anywhere else we know. A traveler falling toward the giant's pole would drift down over this astonishing arrangement. A wheel of vast hurricanes turning together in the cold, each one enormous, all of them locked in a pattern of quiet and enduring beauty. At the North Pole, 8 great cyclones ring a single central storm. At the south, 5 surround another, arrangements so orderly and so stable that they seem almost designed, though they arise entirely on their own, from the deep and patient physics of the turning giant. The 60th fact is that having entered the clouds, passed the towering storms, and begun to feel the light grow dim and the pressure gently climb, our traveler now approaches the single most famous feature on all of Jupiter. A storm so vast it has watched over the giant for centuries, and so wide that our whole Earth could vanish within it. It glows a soft and ancient red in the southern sky below. So let us drift now toward that great and patient tempest, the great red spot, and pass gently by its swirling edge as we continue our long fall down. The 61st fact is that the great red spot is a colossal storm, a single spinning tempest so enormous that it is wider than the entire planet Earth, around 16,000 kilometers across, a hurricane large enough to swallow our whole world with room to spare. It is the largest storm known anywhere in the solar system. A traveler falling near it would find no edge in sight, only an endless wall of slowly turning cloud, red and orange and cream, curving away in every direction. To pass the great red spot is to drift beside a storm larger than a world. Once, centuries ago, it may have been wider still, wide enough to swallow 2 or even 3 Earths side by side. A tempest so vast that our whole planet, with all its oceans and mountains and every soul upon it, would be lost within it like a pebble in a great turning sea. The 62nd fact is that the Great Red Spot has been turning for a very long time, likely for more than 350 years. For astronomers have watched a great spot on Jupiter since at least the 1600s, when the first telescopes turned its way. No storm on Earth lasts more than days or weeks, yet this one has endured for centuries, spinning patiently while empires rose and fell far away on our small blue world. A traveler drifting past it would be gazing upon a tempest older than nearly every human institution, ancient beyond all earthly weather. The 63rd fact is that unlike the hurricanes of Earth, which are regions of low pressure, the Great Red Spot is a high-pressure storm, an anticyclone, its clouds bulging gently upward above the surrounding decks, rising several kilometers higher than the cloud tops around it. This upward swelling structure is part of what has helped it endure so long. A traveler falling alongside it would pass a storm that rises to meet them, its cool high clouds towering into the sky, before its vast swirling body curves away beneath them into the shadowed and endless deep. The 64th fact is that the winds around the rim of the Great Red Spot race at tremendous speeds, whirling around its edge at hundreds of kilometers per hour. A great racetrack of wind circling the storm's calmer center. It takes these winds several Earth days to complete a single lap around the spot's enormous circumference. A traveler caught near its edge would be swept along on this mighty current, carried around and around the storm even as they sank. Yet at its very heart, the motion gentles, a strange island of calm within the turning colossus. The 65th fact is that the Great Red Spot, ancient as it is, has been slowly shrinking over the years and centuries that we have watched it. Once far wider than it is today, it has grown narrower and rounder with time. Whether it will one day fade away entirely, no one yet knows. A traveler falling past it now sees a storm perhaps in its long, slow twilight, still immense beyond imagining, yet quietly diminishing across the generations. We may live in an age that still holds the great storm, an age that will not last forever in the giant's endless time. The 66th fact is that the spacecraft Juno peered deep into the Great Red Spot and discovered that its roots reach far down, hundreds of kilometers below the visible cloud tops. A storm not thin like a coin, but deep like a great well sunk into the giant. It stretches downward far beyond where its swirling face can be seen. A traveler falling past it would descend along the flank of a storm reaching deep into Jupiter, a tempest with hidden depths, its true extent buried far beneath the beautiful red spiral that we see from the outside. The 67th fact is that the red color of the Great Red Spot remains a genuine mystery, its exact cause still not fully understood. Perhaps the result of chemicals lifted from deep within, then changed by sunlight high in the storm's tall clouds. The precise recipe for that famous rusty hue has never been fully confirmed, so a traveler drifting past would be passing through a color no scientist can yet completely explain. A deep and ancient red born of chemistry, we glimpse but do not command, painted across the largest storm in all the solar system. The 68th fact is that the Great Red Spot rotates slowly upon itself, turning counterclockwise as seen from above, taking roughly 6 Earth days to complete a single full rotation of its enormous body. A stately, unhurried spin for so vast a storm. Where an earthly hurricane whirls in mere hours, this giant tempest takes the better part of a week to turn once around. A traveler falling into its influence would be carried along on that slow, majestic rotation, drifting around the storm at a pace so gentle it would feel almost like stillness, though it spans a world. The 69th fact is that the tops of the Great Red Spot's clouds are actually colder than much of the surrounding atmosphere, chilled by rising high above the neighboring decks into the frigid upper air, so that this fierce and famous storm is, at its crown, a place of deep and bitter cold. Its towering clouds reach up into the coldest layers of the giant's sky. A traveler falling past its summit would drift through frozen heights. The storm's uppermost reaches colder even than the ammonia clouds around, before sinking down along its vast and shadowed flanks toward warmer depths below. The 70th fact is that high above the Great Red Spot, scientists have found that Jupiter's upper atmosphere is strangely heated, warmer there than in many other places. Perhaps because the storm below sends waves of energy rippling upward, like sound rising from a churning sea. The great tempest may be warming the sky far above its own cold summit. A traveler falling through that region would pass first through a curiously warm high layer, then down into the storm's frozen crown, and deeper still, feeling the temperatures shift strangely with each stage of the long descent. The 71st fact is that the Great Red Spot does not live alone, but is sometimes fed by smaller storms that drift into it and are drawn in, merging with the greater tempest, swallowed and absorbed as the giant storm rolls on. Little eddies and spots wander near, are caught, and vanish into the whole. A traveler falling nearby might watch one of these smaller storms spiral inward and be consumed, a gentle reminder that even the mightiest features of Jupiter are woven from countless smaller motions, all of them turning together in the vast machinery of the giant sky. The 72nd fact is that near the Great Red Spot drifts another notable storm, a large reddish oval sometimes nicknamed Red Spot Jr., formed when three smaller white storms merged together and slowly turned red over the years, a younger echo of the great storm itself. It shows how Jupiter can build new red tempests from old white ones. Given enough time, a traveler falling past this second red oval would see the giant in the very act of creation, shaping fresh storms from the slow union of its wandering clouds, in a process spanning years and decades. The 73rd fact is that to fall near the Great Red Spot would be to feel, more than anywhere else, the sheer impossible scale of Jupiter. For here a single storm stretches wider than an entire planet, and no human sense could take in its whole vastness at once. A traveler would see only a portion of it, an endless curving wall of cloud, with no way to grasp the full immensity. It is scale beyond the reach of the mind, a storm so large that our whole world is but a small coin held against its face. The 74th fact is that Jupiter's storms are truly three-dimensional, not flat swirls painted on a surface but towering, deep structures rising and plunging through many kilometers of atmosphere, great columns of turning cloud with height and depth as well as width. The Great Red Spot and its kin are more like vast cylinders of storm than like the thin spirals we imagine. A traveler falling through would move not across a picture but through a living architecture of cloud, sinking past the tall walls and deep foundations of storms built on a scale no earthly weather could ever match. The 75th fact is that where Jupiter's great winds and storms meet and shear against one another, they leave long turbulent wakes, trailing ribbons of curling cloud and gentle chaos streaming away behind them, like the wake left by a ship, but drawn across a sky wider than worlds. These wakes swirl and fold for enormous distances downwind. A traveler drifting through would pass through these trailing eddies, the air twisting softly around them, the giant's currents leaving their signature written in cloud across vast and patient stretches of the turning atmosphere. The 76th fact is that although Jupiter's storms are violent beyond anything on Earth, our imagined fall tonight is a gentle one, drifting slowly and safely through it all, feeling only the vast and unhurried motion of the giant, never the fury it would truly hold. In gentle honesty, no true traveler could survive these winds and this radiation, but in the quiet space of the mind, we may drift where the body never could, sinking softly through storms that would tear a real ship apart, carried down as calmly as a feather settling through still air. The 77th fact is that the Great Red Spot has served, for centuries, as a kind of landmark on the face of Jupiter, a single fixed feature by which astronomers could track the giant's rotation and changes over time. A great red eye watching from the southern clouds. Generations of watchers have measured the planet by its slow drift, timing its passage across the face of the giant to learn how fast Jupiter turns. So that a single storm has served as the great clock of the planet for centuries. And so, for our falling traveler, the storm serves as a landmark too, a familiar and ancient marker passed on the long way down, a last great sight of the visible world before the deep and hidden layers begin. The 78th fact is that one reason the Great Red Spot and Jupiter's other storms endure so long is that the giant has no continents or coastlines to break them apart. For on Earth, hurricanes weaken and die when they cross onto land, but Jupiter offers no land at all. With nothing but endless atmosphere beneath them, its storms can spin on for centuries, undisturbed. A traveler falling through would understand that the very featurelessness of the giant, its lack of any ground, is what allows its storms to grow so vast and to live so astonishingly long. The 79th fact is that Jupiter's storms are powered in large part by the heat rising from deep within the planet. The same inner warmth that makes the giant glow with more energy than it receives from the sun, a furnace far below, driving the churning of the clouds above. The weather of Jupiter is fed from beneath as much as from without. A traveler falling downward is descending toward the very source of all this storming energy, the deep internal heat that stirs the whole atmosphere, and that will make itself felt more strongly with every kilometer of the fall. The 80th fact is that having drifted past the great storms and the ancient red tempest, our traveler now leaves the realm of clouds we can see and enters the deeper, hidden layers of the giant, where sunlight no longer reaches and the true and endless fall begins. Below lies a world no telescope has ever glimpsed, mapped only by physics and by careful thought. So take another slow breath and let yourself sink a little further as we descend now beneath the last of the clouds, into the deepening dark where Jupiter keeps its deepest secrets. The 81st fact is that as our traveler sinks beneath the visible clouds, the single most important truth of the whole journey becomes clear once more. There is no floor to hit, no surface to strike, no ground waiting anywhere below, only gas, growing thicker and thicker without any end. On Earth, every fall meets the ground at last. But on Jupiter, the fall simply continues, softer and heavier at once. The traveler does not crash. They sink and keep on sinking into layers that grow ever denser around them, with never a solid thing to break the long descent. The 82nd fact is that beneath the clouds, a falling traveler would simply enter ever thicker gas, the hydrogen and helium around them growing steadily denser as they descended, so that the fall would slow, not from any floor, but from the sheer resistance of the thickening air. It would feel less like plunging and more like sinking through an ocean that grows heavier with every meter. The gas presses closer, the descent gentles into a slow, deep drift, and the traveler settles ever downward through a sky that is becoming, imperceptibly, something almost like a sea. The 83rd fact is that with every kilometer of descent, the pressure around a falling traveler rises relentlessly, the weight of all the gas above pressing down harder and harder, climbing far beyond anything ever felt at the surface of the Earth. Where the cloud tops held a gentle Earth-like pressure, the deep layers hold pressures thousands and then millions of times greater. A traveler sinking down would feel this weight gathering around them, an invisible ocean pressing in from every side, growing heavier with each moment of the long and quiet fall into the dark. The 84th fact is that as the pressure climbs, so too does the temperature, rising steadily with depth as the traveler sinks deeper into the giant. For the compression of the gas and the heat rising from the core together warm the descending layers. The bitter cold of the cloud tops, minus 145 degrees, is left far behind. And in its place comes a growing warmth, then heat, then a fierce and rising temperature. The deeper the fall, the hotter the dark becomes, until the depths glow with a heat no surface ever knows. The 85th fact is that beneath the clouds, the last of the sunlight fades away entirely, and the traveler descends into a deepening darkness, the pale golden day of the cloud tops swallowed by the thickening gas above, until no glimmer of the distant sun remains. The world becomes utterly dark, a blackness deeper than any earthly night, and yet the dark is not empty of warmth, for the giant glows faintly with its own inner heat, an unseen radiance felt rather than seen. The traveler falls on through a warm and lightless deep, wrapped in the giant's own quiet glow. The 86th fact is that below the cloud decks, the atmosphere becomes largely clear hydrogen and helium, the visible clouds left behind above, so that a traveler passes into a vast and transparent layer of gas, clearer than the cloudy skies overhead, yet growing denser and darker all the while. This is the deep atmosphere of Jupiter, a great clear region between the clouds and the fluid depths below. A traveler falling through would drift in a hidden, transparent dark, the last clouds a fading memory above, the true interior of the giant opening slowly beneath them. The 87th fact is that as the traveler sinks, the gas around them gradually changes in character, thickening from something like a wind into something more like a fluid, so slowly and smoothly that there is no single moment of change. No splash, no surface, no line to cross. The gas simply becomes denser and heavier until it behaves less like air and more like a thick and heavy sea. A traveler would find, without ever noticing exactly when, that they were no longer falling through a sky but sinking through something closer to an ocean, seamless and strange. The 88th fact is that a falling traveler would at first accelerate under Jupiter's powerful gravity, gaining speed as they plunged, but the ever-thickening gas would soon push back, slowing the descent, so that instead of falling faster and faster forever, they would settle into a slow, resisted sinking. The denser the gas, the more it holds them back, until the fall becomes a gentle drift downward through a medium as thick as syrup and then thicker still. The plunge softens into a slow settling, the traveler easing deeper into the giant with each patient moment. It is a little like sinking into deep water after a headlong dive. The first rush slows, the motion gentles, and the descent becomes a quiet, drifting glide, down through the warm and gathering dark, ever softer and ever deeper. The 89th fact is that only a few tens of kilometers beneath the cloud tops, the pressure has already climbed to many times that of Earth's surface, and the temperature has risen well above the freezing cold above, so that even this early in the deep fall conditions have grown fierce and strange. Yet this is still only the shallowest edge of Jupiter's true depths. The traveler has fallen a distance that would span the height of Earth's atmosphere many times over, and still they are barely beneath the skin of the giant, with thousands upon thousands of kilometers yet below. The 90th fact is that it was into these upper layers, just beneath the clouds, that a real spacecraft once fell, the small probe carried by the Galileo mission, which we will follow more closely near the end of our journey. It plunged into Jupiter's atmosphere in December of 1995, the only machine ever to descend into the giant and send back word from within. It reached only a little way down before the growing heat and pressure ended its brave descent, a reminder that even our finest travelers have touched only the very shallowest edge of this immense and hidden fall. The 91st fact is that scientists often measure depth in Jupiter not by kilometers but by how many times the pressure has doubled, for the pressure climbs so steeply that it is easier to count in doublings than in distance, each new layer holding twice the crushing weight of the one above. From the gentle pressure of the cloud tops, the weight doubles again and again as the traveler sinks, so that after many doublings, the pressure becomes almost impossible to imagine, and the traveler is wrapped in a weight beyond any earthly measure, still far above the deepest layers of all. The 92nd fact is that in the deep atmosphere, there is no horizon and no sky, only a uniform and deepening dark in every direction, with perhaps the faintest fading glow far above where the sunlight once was, and even that would soon be gone. A traveler falling here would have no sense of up or down but for the pull of gravity itself. No landscape, no edge, no view, only the endless, formless dark pressing gently in from all sides, warm and heavy, as they sink ever deeper into the featureless heart of the giant's outer depths. The 93rd fact is that somewhere in this deep descent, the very distinction between atmosphere and interior begins to blur and lose its meaning, for there is no clear boundary where the sky ends and the body of the planet begins, only a smooth, continuous thickening of the hydrogen from gas toward fluid. Jupiter has no shore between its air and its depths. A traveler falling through would pass this vague and shifting threshold without ever knowing it, drifting from what we call the atmosphere into what we call the interior, across a border that exists only in our naming of it. The 94th fact is that in the dense gas of these deep layers, sound would travel easily, so that the whole vast region would be filled with the low rumble and moan of the giant's churning, though there would be no ear to hear it, and no living thing to listen. The deep interior of Jupiter is a place of pressure and motion, of slow immense currents grinding past one another. A traveler falling through this thick and heavy medium would be surrounded by a silent, unheard symphony of the planet's own deep and ceaseless movement, felt as trembling more than heard as sound. The 95th fact is that the spacecraft Juno, by carefully measuring Jupiter's gravity, discovered that the giant's powerful winds are not shallow at all, but reach down some 3,000 kilometers into the planet, far deeper than anyone had once believed. The banded jets we see at the cloud tops are the visible tops of currents plunging vast distances into the dark. A traveler falling through these depths would still feel the winds carrying them sideways, thousands of kilometers below the clouds, borne along by great flows that reach far into the giant's hidden and enormous body. The 96th fact is that below the depth where the winds finally fade, around 3,000 kilometers down, Jupiter begins to rotate more nearly as a single solid body, its deep interior turning almost altogether rather than in separate bands. A great uniform spinning of the giant's fluid depths. Below this point, the deep interior seems to turn almost altogether, no longer divided into the racing east and west jets we see so clearly at the top. The chaos of the banded winds gives way to a deeper, simpler motion far below. A traveler falling past this level would pass from the realm of the racing jets into a calmer, more unified turning, the whole vast interior wheeling slowly and steadily around the planet's distant axis. The 97th fact is that by now our traveler is enclosed entirely within warm and ever-denser hydrogen, wrapped on every side by the giant's deep and lightless fluid, far from any cloud or wind or star, alone in the immense and heavy dark. The familiar world of stripes and storms is gone, left far above like a fading dream, and around them lies only the deep body of Jupiter itself, warm, dark, and pressing ever closer. The traveler has passed beyond the sky entirely, into the true and hidden interior, where the long fall grows stranger with each kilometer. The 98th fact is that the sky, by now, has vanished utterly, for there is no longer any opening above through which the stars or sun might shine, only the unbroken dark of the deep giant on every side. A darkness complete and total, warm and heavy and immense. A traveler falling here would have no memory of light but their own. Nothing overhead but more of the same deep fluid stretching endlessly back toward the distant clouds. The outer universe, with all its stars, is sealed away far above, beyond thousands of kilometers of gathering hydrogen. The 99th fact is that even here, deep beneath the clouds, the giant is still made of the same two simple elements it began with, hydrogen and helium. Yet under this crushing weight and rising heat, those familiar gases have begun to behave in ways utterly unlike anything on Earth. The hydrogen is no longer quite a gas, not yet quite a liquid, but something stranger in between. A traveler falling through would be passing into a realm where the ordinary rules of matter start to bend and change, where even the simplest substance takes on new and alien forms. The 100th fact is that as our traveler sinks deeper still, the hydrogen around them crosses a remarkable threshold, becoming what scientists call a supercritical fluid, neither truly gas nor truly liquid, but something that partakes of both at once. A seamless, dense, and exotic state of matter. And so the fall enters a wholly new realm, beyond the atmosphere we know. So let your breathing slow once more, and let yourself sink with the traveler, as we descend now into the strange supercritical depths, where gas and ocean become one and the same. The 101st fact is that a supercritical fluid is a strange and wonderful state of matter that arises under great heat and pressure, in which the difference between gas and liquid simply disappears, so that the substance flows and fills space like a gas, yet is dense and heavy like a liquid all at once. Deep in Jupiter, the hydrogen reaches this state, and a traveler falling through would find themselves in a medium that is neither air nor sea, but a seamless blending of the two, thick and warm and utterly unlike anything found in the ordinary world. The 102nd fact is that because the hydrogen becomes supercritical, there is no surface where atmosphere gives way to ocean, no splash, no shoreline, no moment of entering a sea. Only a smooth and gradual thickening, gas deepening into fluid without any boundary at all. A traveler falling into Jupiter never lands upon an ocean. They simply find, at some point in the endless descent, that the gas around them has quietly become a fluid, a seamless transition, gentle and imperceptible, from sky into depth, with never a single line to mark the crossing. The 103rd fact is that by these depths, the temperature has climbed to thousands of degrees, far hotter than any oven or furnace on Earth, hot enough to melt or vaporize nearly any ordinary substance. A rising, relentless heat pouring up from the giant's core far below. The cold of the cloud tops is now an impossibly distant memory, and the traveler, in gentle honesty, would long since have been overwhelmed. Yet in imagination we drift on unharmed, sinking through a warmth grown fierce and immense, deeper into the glowing dark of the giant's interior. The 104th fact is that the pressure at these depths has grown to hundreds of thousands of times the air pressure at Earth's surface, a weight so vast it staggers the mind, enough to crush any earthly vessel to nothing in an instant. The whole immense mass of Jupiter's atmosphere above bears down here with unimaginable force. A traveler sinking through would be wrapped in a pressure that no material we know could withstand, held gently in the story yet pressed, in truth, by a weight beyond all earthly reckoning, still far above the deepest and heaviest layers of all. The 105th fact is that though the deep interior of Jupiter is utterly dark, sealed away from every star and from the sun, it is not entirely without light, for the fluid itself glows faintly with the heat of its own tremendous temperature, a deep, dim, reddish radiance born of warmth rather than of any sun. A traveler falling through would be surrounded not by blackness alone but by a faint and eerie glow, the giant's own inner fire shining softly through its depths. A light with no source but the heat of the planet itself, ancient and self-made. The 106th fact is that under this rising heat and pressure, the hydrogen molecules that make up so much of Jupiter are squeezed closer and closer together, packed into a dense and heavy fluid unlike any hydrogen we could ever hold in our hands, compressed far beyond its ordinary nature. The simple, light gas of the cloud tops has become, In the depths, a thick and weighty sea, a traveler sinking through would pass through hydrogen crushed into forms it never takes at the surface, the giant slowly transforming its most abundant element into something strange and dense with every kilometer of the fall. The same hydrogen that is so light on Earth that it floats away into space becomes, in the depths of Jupiter, one of the heaviest and strangest fluids imaginable, changed utterly by nothing more than weight and heat. The 107th fact is that scientists believe that deep within Jupiter, the helium may begin to separate from the hydrogen, condensing into fine droplets that slowly rain downward through the fluid, a gentle, endless fall of helium within the greater fall of the giant. This helium rain sinks toward the deeper layers, releasing heat as it goes. A traveler drifting through these depths might, in imagination, pass through a soft and invisible drizzle of helium, forever falling deeper into Jupiter, a rain that never reaches any ground, mirroring their own long and endless descent. It is a strange and lovely image, a rain within a planet, falling through a fall, droplets of one element sinking slowly through a sea of another, deeper and deeper into the warm and gleaming dark. The 108th fact is that this slow raining out of helium may help explain a curious puzzle, for the upper atmosphere of Jupiter seems to hold less of certain elements, like neon, than expected, perhaps because they are carried downward, dissolved in the sinking helium droplets. The giant quietly rearranges its own chemistry with depth. A traveler falling through would be passing through layers subtly stripped and sorted by this endless inner rain, the lighter elements above and the heavier ones drawn slowly down, the whole planet gently sifting itself across the ages. The 109th fact is that the tremendous heat within Jupiter is, in large part, ancient heat, left over from the planet's very formation some 4.5 billion years ago, when it gathered together out of gas and dust and grew warm from the falling in of all that material, a primordial warmth still glowing after billions of years. The giant has been slowly releasing this old heat ever since. A traveler falling into the depths is sinking toward a fire kindled at the dawn of the solar system, a warmth as old as the planets themselves, still burning quietly in the dark. As the young giant gathered its enormous mass, all that infalling gas and dust released a tremendous heat, and Jupiter has been slowly letting go of it ever since, cooling so gently that, after 4.5 billion years, its heart still glows. The 110th fact is that Jupiter is also still very slowly shrinking, contracting under its own immense gravity by a small amount each year, and this gentle squeezing releases yet more heat from within, so that the giant glows partly from the ancient warmth of its birth and partly from its own ongoing patient contraction. It gives off more energy than it receives from the distant sun. A traveler falling into the depths descends toward a planet that is, ever so slowly, still settling and warming itself, a great heart quietly tightening across the long ages of deep time. The 111th fact is that the fluid region of Jupiter, this vast supercritical ocean of hydrogen, is enormous, thousands upon thousands of kilometers deep, making up a great portion of the whole planet's vast interior. A sea so deep that all of Earth's oceans together would be but a single drop within it. A traveler falling through would descend for a distance many times the width of our world, still surrounded by the same warm, dense fluid, sinking on and on through an ocean without shore or floor, deeper than any depth the mind can easily hold. The deepest trench in all of Earth's oceans could be lowered into this fluid sea again and again, thousands of times over, and still not reach its bottom. So vast is the giant, so gentle and so endless is the fall. The 112th fact is that as the traveler sinks deeper into this fluid sea, the density around them keeps rising, the hydrogen packed ever more tightly, so that each kilometer of descent brings a heavier and more crushing medium than the one above, the fluid growing thicker and more resistant the deeper the fall goes. What began as thin, cold air at the cloud tops has become, in these depths, a fluid of extraordinary density. And still it thickens, still it presses closer, as the traveler drifts on toward layers heavier and stranger yet, far below in the giant's hidden heart. The 113th fact is that, in truth, no living body could survive to reach these depths, long since overwhelmed by the heat and the crushing weight far above. And so this part of our fall belongs entirely to the imagination, to the gentle wandering of the mind where no harm can follow. It is only in thought that we may drift down through the supercritical sea, past pressures and temperatures that would end any real journey in moments. A fall made safely in dream, sinking softly through depths that the body could never truly know, carried only by wonder and by the quiet of the night. The 114th fact is that within Jupiter's deep fluid interior, great slow currents of convection carry heat outward from the hot core toward the cooler layers above, immense circulations of rising warm fluid and sinking cooler fluid, a ceaseless, patient churning across the whole vast body of the giant. These currents move slowly but on an enormous scale. A traveler falling through would be caught in these grand circulations, borne along by flows thousands of kilometers across, the giant forever stirring its own depths as it carries its ancient heat gently up toward the distant, unseen sky. The 115th fact is that these deep convection currents are the true engine behind Jupiter's weather far above, for the heat they carry upward from the interior helps drive the churning of the clouds and the racing of the winds, so that the storms we see at the cloud tops are, in a sense, powered by the slow stirring of the deep. The visible weather is the surface expression of a vast hidden circulation. A traveler falling through the depths would be sinking past the very engine of the giant storms, the deep beating heart that stirs the whole restless atmosphere above. The 116th fact is that the transition from ordinary hydrogen to its deeper, stranger forms is not sudden but gradual, spread across a vast range of depths, so that there is no single moment of change but a slow and continuous transformation, the hydrogen shifting its nature little by little as the pressure and heat climb. A traveler falling through would never cross a sharp line, only sink deeper into ever more exotic states of matter, the familiar giving way to the strange so gently that no boundary could ever be felt, only the endless, smooth deepening of the fall. The 117th fact is that in these depths there is no life, no light from any star, no sound that any ear could hear, only the immense and patient pressure of the giant and the slow churning of its warm dark fluid. A place of perfect solitude, older and deeper than anything a living thing has ever touched. And yet there is a strange calm to it, a vast and unhurried stillness beneath all the churning. A traveler falling through would find, amid the crushing depths, a kind of peace, the deep and dreamless quiet of a place untouched by time or trouble. The 118th fact is that by now, our traveler has fallen many thousands of kilometers into Jupiter, a distance several times the whole width of the Earth, and yet they remain still far from the giant's core. For Jupiter is so immense that even such an enormous fall carries one only partway toward the center. The scale of the giant humbles every measure we know. A traveler might feel they had fallen forever, and still find the deepest layers waiting far below, thousands of kilometers deeper yet, in the crushing dark toward which they continue slowly to sink. The 119th fact is that the warmth around the traveler, once gentle, then fierce, has by now become a deep and glowing heat, thousands of degrees, hotter than molten rock, hot enough to make the fluid itself shine faintly in the dark. A heat that only climbs higher with every kilometer of descent. What began as an oven-like warmth has become a furnace, and will become hotter still. A traveler sinking through would be wrapped in a rising tide of heat, the giant's inner fire growing ever nearer, glowing softly around them as they drift down toward the deepest and hottest layers of all. The 120th fact is that at last, as the pressure climbs toward millions of times that of Earth's surface, the hydrogen around the traveler undergoes its most remarkable transformation of all, becoming a strange and wondrous substance that behaves like a liquid metal, conducting electricity, gleaming in the dark, unlike any hydrogen we could ever make on Earth. And so the fall enters its deepest great layer, the metallic sea. So breathe slowly, and sink gently with the story, as we descend now into the vast ocean of liquid metallic hydrogen at the giant's core. The 121st fact is that at pressures of a few million times the air pressure at Earth's surface, the hydrogen deep within Jupiter is squeezed so hard that its atoms can no longer hold on to their electrons in the ordinary way, and it transforms into a form called metallic hydrogen, a liquid metal made of the lightest element there is. This astonishing substance fills the giant's deep interior. A traveler falling this far would sink into a vast ocean of liquid metal, a sea unlike anything in all the worlds we know, dark and dense and gleaming faintly in the depths. The 122nd fact is that metallic hydrogen conducts electricity, just as copper or iron does, its freed electrons flowing easily through the dense liquid, so that this deep ocean within Jupiter is not only a fluid but a great electrical conductor, thousands of kilometers deep. It is this remarkable property that gives the layer its power and its importance. A traveler falling through would be sinking into a sea that carries electric currents through its very body, a conducting ocean of liquid metal, silent and dark, yet alive with the slow flow of electricity through its immense and hidden depths. The 123rd fact is that this ocean of liquid metallic hydrogen is, by some measures, the largest ocean anywhere in the solar system, a sea of metal thousands of kilometers deep and wrapping most of the way around the giant's core, dwarfing every ocean, every sea, every body of water on all the worlds we know. It holds a great share of Jupiter's enormous mass. A traveler falling through would descend for thousands of kilometers within this single vast ocean, sinking through a sea of gleaming metal so immense that our whole planet could vanish within it many times over. The 124th fact is that it is here, in this deep ocean of metallic hydrogen, that Jupiter's mighty magnetic field is born, the very field we crossed at the beginning of our fall far out in space, generated by the slow churning of this vast electrical sea. What we met first, out among the radiation belts, is truly made here, at the deepest layer of the giant. A traveler falling through would be drifting within the very source of Jupiter's magnetism, the great hidden engine whose invisible reach stretches millions of kilometers out into the dark, all of it created in this deep and gleaming sea. The 125th fact is that the magnetic field is generated by a process called a dynamo, in which the swirling, churning motion of the electrically conducting metallic hydrogen creates electric currents, and those currents in turn create the magnetic field, a self-sustaining engine of motion and magnetism deep within the giant. As long as the fluid churns and conducts, the field endures. A traveler falling through would be sinking into this living dynamo, the currents flowing all around them, the giant forever winding its own magnetism into being through the endless slow motion of its deep metallic sea. The 126th fact is that Jupiter's magnetic field, born in this deep ocean, is the strongest of any planet in the solar system, many times mightier than the Earth's own field, so powerful that its influence reaches out for millions of kilometers into space in every direction. No other planet wields such magnetism. A traveler falling into this deep sea is descending into the wellspring of that colossal force, the single deepest source of the invisible power that shapes the whole vast region around Jupiter, trapping radiation and lighting the auroras far above in the frigid cloud tops. The 127th fact is that metallic hydrogen has never been made in any stable, lasting form here on Earth, for it requires pressures so extreme that our laboratories can produce it only for the briefest flickering instants, if at all, a substance far easier to find inside Jupiter than to create in any human hand. What fills the giant's deep ocean remains, to us, almost mythical. A traveler falling through would be immersed in a material that no scientist has ever truly held, a legendary form of matter, common in the hearts of giants, yet all but impossible to grasp on the small and gentle Earth. Scientists have spent decades trying to make even the tiniest speck of it in their laboratories, squeezing hydrogen between diamonds with tremendous force, and still it slips away in an instant, a substance far more at home in the depths of Jupiter than anywhere on our world. The 128th fact is that the pressure within this metallic ocean climbs to millions of times the air pressure at Earth's surface, a weight so vast it defies all ordinary comparison. The whole immense mass of Jupiter above pressing down upon these deep and gleaming layers. Nothing we know from the everyday world can prepare the mind for such a crushing force. A traveler sinking through would be held within a pressure beyond all earthly measure, wrapped in the weight of a whole giant world, drifting gently in the story yet pressed, in truth, by forces that shape the very structure of the planet. The 129th fact is that within this metallic ocean, temperatures climb into the thousands and then the tens of thousands of degrees, growing ever hotter the deeper one sinks toward the core, a heat far greater than the surface of the sun itself in the deepest layers. The fluid glows with this warmth, a deep and hidden radiance in the crushing dark. A traveler falling through would be immersed in a sea both blazingly hot and enormously heavy at once, a gleaming metal ocean glowing softly with its own fierce heat, growing warmer still with every kilometer of the long descent toward the center. It is a strange and gentle thought that the coldest clouds and the hottest depths of the same world are joined by only this one long fall, from a frozen sky far above to a metallic sea hotter than the face of the sun, all within the single quiet body of the giant. The 130th fact is that this deep ocean of metallic hydrogen makes up a great part of Jupiter's entire volume and mass, a single layer so vast that it defines much of what the giant truly is. For far more of Jupiter is this deep metallic sea than is the thin skin of cloud and storm we see from outside. The visible planet is but a shallow shell upon this immense hidden ocean. A traveler falling through it would understand, at last, that the true Jupiter is not the striped face in our telescopes, but this deep, dark, gleaming sea of liquid metal. The 131st fact is that though utterly dark to any outside eye, this metallic ocean glows faintly from within, warmed by the tremendous heat of the giant's depths, so that its gleaming liquid shines with a deep and self-made light, a radiance born wholly of pressure and warmth, with never a star or sun to feed it. A traveler falling through would be surrounded by this soft inner glow, the deep sea shining faintly around them, a light utterly hidden from the universe outside, sealed within thousands of kilometers of the giant, shining only for the depths that will never be seen. The 132nd fact is that the churning of this metallic ocean, driven by the heat rising from below, is what keeps the great dynamo turning and the magnetic field alive, the slow convection of the conducting fluid forever generating the giant's magnetism. A deep and ceaseless motion, turning heat into electricity and electricity into an invisible field. Without this churning, the field would fade. A traveler falling through would be drifting within a sea in perpetual slow motion, its currents winding the magnetism of the whole planet, the deep engine that reaches, unseen, all the way out to the distant edge of space. Without this slow and endless churning, the giant's magnetism would gently fade away over long ages. But as long as the heat rises and the metal flows, the field endures, wrapping the whole vast world in its quiet and invisible embrace. The 133rd fact is that Jupiter's magnetic field is tilted by about 10 degrees from the planet's axis of rotation, so that the magnetic poles do not sit quite at the top and bottom of the spinning giant. a gentle lean in the great invisible field. This tilt means the field wobbles as the planet turns, sweeping its influence around with every swift rotation. A traveler falling through the deep dynamo would be within the very region where this tilted field is shaped, the metallic currents flowing in patterns that lean and turn, casting the giant's magnetism out into space at its own quiet, characteristic angle. The 134th fact is that the fierce radiation belts we crossed at the very beginning of our fall far out in space are held in place by this deep magnetic field born here in the metallic ocean, so that the danger we met first, out among the charged particles, is truly created at the deepest layer of all. The field reaches from this hidden sea all the way out to trap those distant particles. A traveler falling through would grasp, at last, how the beginning and the depths of the fall are bound together, the giant's outermost peril rooted in its innermost heart. The 135th fact is that the fine droplets of helium raining down from the layers above may sink all the way into this metallic ocean, settling gently through the dense fluid toward the deeper regions near the core. A slow rain of helium finding its way into the deepest sea. This sinking helium releases heat as it falls, adding to the warmth of the depths. A traveler drifting through would be passing through a sea into which helium forever gently rains, the giant slowly sorting its elements by depth, the lightest hydrogen above and the heavier helium settling quietly toward the center far below. The 136th fact is that as the whole metallic ocean rotates with the spinning planet, its motion helps shape the magnetic field, the turning of the conducting sea drawing the field into its characteristic form and casting it outward into space, so that Jupiter's swift spin and its deep metallic ocean work together to build its mighty magnetism. The rotation and the churning combine into one great engine. A traveler falling through would be borne along on the slow rotation of this deep sea, turning with the whole giant, part of the vast wheeling motion that winds the magnetic field into being. The 137th fact is that this deep metallic ocean is a place of almost unimaginable extremes, immensely hot and immensely heavy at once, dark and gleaming, silent and churning. A sea of liquid metal thousands of kilometers deep at the heart of the largest planet we know. A realm so far beyond ordinary experience that the mind can only reach toward it gently. A traveler falling through would be immersed in conditions found nowhere on Earth or any small world, sinking through the strange and hidden sea that makes Jupiter the giant it truly is, deep beneath its calm and beautiful face. The 138th fact is that a real traveler, of course, would have been crushed and overwhelmed unimaginably long before ever reaching this metallic sea, ended by heat and pressure far above in the fluid layers, so that this part of the fall, deepest and strangest of all, belongs wholly to the gentle wandering of the mind. Only in imagination can we drift into the metallic ocean and drift out again unharmed. A fall made in dream alone, sinking through depths no body could survive, carried by wonder through a sea that will forever remain, to us, a place glimpsed only in thought. The 139th fact is that by the time our traveler has sunk into the metallic ocean, they have fallen tens of thousands of kilometers into the giant, a distance many times the width of the whole Earth, and yet the very center still lies deeper below, in the crushing dark toward which the fall continues. Jupiter is so immense that even this enormous descent leaves the core still waiting far beneath. A traveler drifting through the metallic sea would sense that the deepest place of all, the giant's ancient heart, still lay ahead, thousands of kilometers deeper into the glowing and gleaming dark. Such is the scale of the giant that a fall which would pass entirely through the Earth, from one side clean out the other, would carry a traveler only a fraction of the way toward Jupiter's distant heart. A humbling measure of just how vast the largest planet truly is. The 140th fact is that far below the metallic ocean, at the very center of Jupiter, lies the giant's core, the deepest and most hidden place of all, wrapped in the greatest heat and the most crushing pressure to be found anywhere within the planet, the final destination of our imagined fall. Toward this ancient heart the traveler now sinks, through the last of the deep metallic sea. So let your breath grow slow and soft once more, and drift gently downward with the story, as we descend at last toward the deep and mysterious core of the largest planet of them all. The 141st fact is that the core of Jupiter is thought to reach temperatures somewhere between around 24,000 and 50,000 degrees Celsius, far hotter even than the visible surface of the Sun, a heat so tremendous it is difficult for the mind to truly hold. Here, at the deepest point of the fall, the giant burns with the fierce warmth of its formation and its slow contraction. A traveler falling this far would arrive at the hottest place in all of Jupiter, a core glowing with a heat that dwarfs anything at the surface of a star, sealed away forever in the deepest dark. The 142nd fact is that the pressure at Jupiter's core is almost beyond imagining, reaching tens of millions of times the air pressure at Earth's surface. The entire crushing weight of the giant, all 318 Earth masses of it, bearing down upon this single deepest point. No material we know from the everyday world could exist unchanged under such a weight. A traveler falling to the core would arrive at a place of the most extreme pressure in the whole planet, a heart squeezed by forces so vast they reshape the very nature of matter itself, in the deep and silent center. The 143rd fact is that the core of Jupiter is believed to be far denser than the layers above, made of heavier materials such as rock, metal, and ice compressed under enormous pressure. The heavy stuff of the giant gathered at its very center, beneath the vast ocean of hydrogen. It is a dense and ancient heart, formed long ago. A traveler falling this deep would reach, at last, a region of far greater density than any they had passed through, the concentrated heavy core of the planet, where rock and metal and exotic ice lie crushed together in the crushing dark. This dense heart is only a small fraction of the giant's width, yet it may hold a great share of its heavy elements. A small, ancient kernel of the solar system's first solid stuff, wrapped in an ocean of hydrogen far larger than itself. The 144th fact is that the spacecraft Juno, measuring Jupiter's gravity with great care, made a surprising discovery about the core, that it may not be a sharp, solid ball, but rather a diffuse and fuzzy region, its heavy materials partly blended and dissolved into the metallic hydrogen around it, a core without a clear edge. Instead of a distinct kernel, there may be a gradual thickening toward the center. A traveler falling to the heart of Jupiter might find no sudden surface, but only an ever denser, ever heavier core, its boundaries as blurred and gentle as everything else in this world without shores. The 145th fact is that the core of Jupiter is thought to hold the mass of several, perhaps even 10 or more Earth's worth of heavy material gathered at the center of the giant, a concentration of rock, metal, and ice far greater than our whole planet, buried beneath thousands of kilometers of hydrogen. It is the ancient seed from which the giant may first have grown. A traveler falling to the core would arrive at the heaviest heart in the solar system's family of planets, a dense center holding many worlds' worth of material, crushed together in the deep and glowing dark. The 146th fact is that many scientists believe Jupiter began as this heavy core, a growing seed of rock and ice in the young solar system, which then gathered around itself the vast envelope of hydrogen and helium gas that makes up most of the planet today, so that the core came first and the great giant grew outward from it. The heart of Jupiter may be the oldest part of all. A traveler falling to the core would be reaching the ancient origin of the giant, the primordial seed around which the whole enormous world was slowly built, long ago at the dawn of the planets. The 147th fact is that the ices thought to make up part of Jupiter's core are not ice as we know it, not cold and brittle, but exotic forms of water, methane, and ammonia squeezed and heated into states never found on the gentle surface of the Earth. Strange, dense, and hot, more like crushed and glowing matter than like frost. Under such pressure, even ice becomes something wholly alien. A traveler falling to the core would pass into a realm of these exotic ices, familiar substances transformed by unimaginable heat and weight into forms we can scarcely picture at all. The 148th fact is that under the crushing pressures of Jupiter's core, water itself may take on a remarkable form that scientists call superionic, in which it is at once solid and liquid, its oxygen locked into a rigid lattice while its hydrogen flows freely through it, a bizarre state of matter born only under the most extreme conditions. Such superionic water may exist deep within the giant. A traveler falling to the core would be drifting through matter behaving in ways that defy every ordinary rule. Water that is frozen and flowing all at once, in the deep and crushing dark of the giant's heart. The 149th fact is that because the core may be fuzzy and partly dissolved, the boundary between the heavy center and the metallic ocean above it may be gradual rather than sharp, the dense core materials mingling slowly with the hydrogen around them, so that even Jupiter's deepest heart has no clear shore or edge. From the outermost haze to the innermost core, the giant is a world of gentle gradations. A traveler falling all the way down would never once cross a solid boundary, only sink through ever deeper, ever denser layers. The whole planet a single vast and seamless descent from cloud to core. The 150th fact is that Jupiter, core and all, formed some 4.5 billion years ago, in the earliest days of the solar system, gathering itself together out of the great disk of gas and dust that surrounded the newborn sun, so that the giant's ancient heart is nearly as old as the solar system itself. It has held its heat and its shape across all the ages since. A traveler falling to the core would be reaching a place that has endured, largely unchanged, since before the Earth had oceans or life, an ancient heart glowing quietly through billions of years of deep time. When this core first formed, there was no Earth beneath your feet, no sun quite as we know it, only a swirling disk of gas and dust around a newborn star. And through all the ages since, while worlds were built and life arose and civilizations rose and fell, the giant's heart has simply gone on glowing, patient, and unchanged. The 151st fact is that some scientists have proposed that early in its history Jupiter may have suffered a colossal collision with another large young planet, an impact so great that it stirred and blended the giant's core, perhaps helping to explain why the core seems so diffuse and fuzzy today. If true, the giant's ancient heart still bears the mark of a great and violent meeting. A traveler falling to the core would be arriving at a place possibly shaped by one of the mightiest collisions in the history of the solar system, its blended heart a quiet record of that long ago and titanic event. Such an impact, if it truly happened, would have stirred the giant's heavy heart up into the layers above like cream folded gently into coffee, which may be why the core seems so diffuse and blurred to us today, billions of years later. The 152nd fact is that the very center of Jupiter, the deepest point of all, is the single most extreme place within the giant, holding at once the greatest heat, the greatest pressure, and the greatest density to be found anywhere in the planet, the ultimate destination of any fall into Jupiter. Nothing lies deeper. There is nowhere further down to go. A traveler reaching the exact center would have arrived at the true bottom of the endless fall, the one place in all the giant where the descent must finally stop, in the hottest and heaviest heart of the largest world we know. The 153rd fact is that at the very center of Jupiter, the pull of gravity would come from every direction at once, all the mass of the giant surrounding a traveler on every side, so that the sensation of falling would gently give way to a strange and perfect weightlessness, floating, held equally by the whole planet in every direction. The long fall would end not with a crash, but with a still and balanced hovering at the heart of the world. A traveler reaching the center would drift, weightless and suspended, in the deepest, hottest, most hidden place in all of Jupiter. The 154th fact is that the whole journey from the top of Jupiter's clouds to its very center would span nearly 70,000 kilometers, a fall many times deeper than the width of the entire Earth. An almost unfathomable descent through cloud and gas, fluid and metal, down to the ancient core. To fall into Jupiter is to fall for a distance that dwarfs whole worlds. A traveler making this journey would descend farther than the diameter of 5 Earths laid end to end, sinking through every layer of the giant, from its frigid pale clouds to its blazing hidden heart. The 155th fact is that such a fall, if it could somehow be made slowly and gently, would carry a traveler through more distinct realms than almost any journey imaginable, from frozen ammonia clouds, through clear deep air, into a supercritical fluid, down through a vast ocean of liquid metal, and at last into a blazing, crushing core. A descent through worlds within a world. No other planet offers so layered and so strange a fall. A traveler making it would pass through nearly every extreme of temperature, pressure, and matter, all within the body of a single giant world. The 156th fact is that no spacecraft has ever reached or could ever reach the core of Jupiter, for the heat and pressure would destroy any machine we could build long before it descended even a fraction of the way. So that everything we know of the deep interior comes not from direct sight, but from careful measurement, from physics, and from patient thought. The core has never been seen, and perhaps never will be. A traveler falling in imagination is drifting through a realm mapped only by the mind, a hidden heart forever beyond the reach of any eye or instrument we possess. The 157th fact is that the deep core of Jupiter holds precious secrets about how the giant, and indeed the whole solar system, first came to be, for its composition and structure are clues to the earliest days of the planets, written in a place we can never directly reach. By studying the giant's gravity and magnetism, scientists gently read these clues from afar. A traveler falling to the core would be drifting through a great and ancient record, a hidden archive of the solar system's birth, its story still slowly being deciphered by patient watchers far above in the light. The 158th fact is that under the extraordinary pressures deep within giant planets, some scientists have wondered whether carbon might be squeezed into diamond, so that a gentle rain of diamonds could, in theory, form in the depths. Though for Jupiter this remains an uncertain and speculative idea, a possibility rather than a proven fact. It is a beautiful thought, unconfirmed, a traveler falling through the deep giant might, if such things were true, drift past glinting diamond forming in the crushing dark. Though we hold this only as a gentle wondering, a maybe, among the many mysteries of the giant's hidden depths. The 159th fact is that for all its blazing heat and crushing weight, the core of Jupiter is a place of profound stillness, its extremes so constant and so ancient that they have scarcely changed across billions of years. A heart both violent and utterly serene, unchanging in the deep and silent dark. There is a strange peace in such enduring extremity. A traveler reaching the core would find not chaos but a deep and timeless calm, the still center of a great turning world, holding its heat and its silence patiently through the long, slow ages of deep cosmic time. The 160th fact is that having followed the fall all the way from the frigid cloud tops to the blazing, crushing core, we now turn gently to the question that began our journey. How long could anyone truly survive such a descent? And how far have our real machines ever managed to go? The honest answer is humbling and quiet, so let your breathing slow once more, and let us drift now from imagining into truth, and gently consider the real limits of falling into the largest planet of them all. The 161st fact is that the plain and gentle truth is that a human being could not survive falling into Jupiter for very long at all, ended within mere minutes by forces no living body could withstand, long before ever reaching the deep and hidden layers we have imagined tonight. The giant is simply too fierce for flesh. And so, while it is a wonderful thing to imagine the whole long fall in the safety of the mind, the reality is that Jupiter would allow no true traveler more than the briefest of moments, high in its outermost reaches, before the descent became impossible. The 162nd fact is that even before reaching the clouds, a traveler would face Jupiter's deadly radiation belts, which would flood a human body with a lethal dose of radiation in a matter of hours, so that the danger would begin far out in space, long before any cloud or wind was ever felt. The giant guards itself fiercely from a great distance. A real traveler approaching Jupiter would be in mortal peril before they even arrived, the invisible storm of charged particles proving the very first and one of the most unforgiving of all the giant's many defenses against the living. The 163rd fact is that at the cloud tops, a traveler would meet the bitter cold of around -145 degrees, cold enough to freeze a body almost at once. Yet this cold would not last, for as the fall continued, the temperature would climb with frightening speed, from deep freeze towards searing heat within a relatively short descent. The giant offers no comfortable middle ground. A real traveler would pass swiftly from a killing cold into a rising and killing heat, the conditions of Jupiter turning lethal in more ways than one, and in more than one direction, as the fall went on. The 164th fact is that as a traveler sank below the clouds, the pressure would climb so quickly that within only minutes of descent it would grow strong enough to crush a human body, the weight of the giant's atmosphere gathering with terrible speed. There would be no slow and gentle deepening for a real traveler, but a swift and overwhelming increase in force. A body falling into Jupiter would be crushed by the mounting pressure long before reaching even the deeper atmosphere, ended by the sheer weight of the gas closing in from every side in the darkening depths. The 165th fact is that because Jupiter has no surface, there would be no ground to catch a falling traveler and no floor on which any parachute could ever bring them safely to rest. So that unlike a fall on Earth, there could be no landing, only an endless descent into ever fiercer conditions. There is nowhere to arrive, nowhere to stop. A real traveler would simply keep sinking with no possible destination until the heat and pressure ended their journey in the deep, the very absence of any ground making survival, in the end, entirely impossible. The 166th fact is that as the fall continued, a traveler would ultimately be crushed by the pressure and vaporized by the rising heat, their body overwhelmed by forces beyond anything the living can endure, consumed gently, almost by the vast indifferent giant. It would not be a violent end so much as an inevitable one, a slow and certain overwhelming. A real traveler would, in truth, become part of Jupiter itself, their substance dissolved into the endless gas, joining the great swirling body of the giant, another trace of matter in a world made of almost unimaginable amounts of it. The 167th fact is that a traveler could never reach Jupiter's core, for they would be destroyed thousands of kilometers above it, long before the deepest layers were ever neared, so that the blazing, crushing heart of the giant would remain forever beyond any living reach. The deep core is not a place one could fall to, but only imagine falling toward. A real traveler would end their descent in the upper depths, with the vast metallic ocean and the ancient core still lying far, far below, untouched and unseen, in the giant's hidden and inviolable heart. The 168th fact is that we do, however, have one real story of a machine falling into Jupiter, for the Galileo mission carried a small descent probe, released toward the giant in July of 1995, which then plunged into Jupiter's atmosphere on the 7th of December that same year. The only craft ever to make the descent we have imagined tonight. It was built to fall and to send home word from within. A brave little machine, carrying our instruments into the giant's clouds, to learn what no traveler could ever survive to see. The 169th fact is that the Galileo probe entered Jupiter's atmosphere at a tremendous speed, plunging in at around 47 kilometers every second, so fast that the friction with the gas heated its protective shield to blazing temperatures, a fiery entry into the giant's outer air. Its heat shield glowed and eroded as it slowed, shielding the delicate instruments within. The probe survived this searing arrival, decelerating fiercely in the upper atmosphere, before deploying a parachute to drift more gently down into the clouds and begin its brief and precious work in the depths of the giant. It was the fastest any human-made object had ever entered a planet's atmosphere, and yet, within minutes, that furious plunge had gentled into a slow and drifting descent beneath its small parachute, easing quietly down into the clouds. The 170th fact is that once slowed by its parachute, the Galileo probe drifted downward through Jupiter's clouds, sampling the atmosphere around it and sending its measurements up to the waiting Galileo orbiter high above. A small machine descending gently into the giant, gathering what knowledge it could as it fell. For the first and only time, we listened from inside Jupiter's own air. The probe measured temperature and pressure, winds and chemistry, drifting deeper into the clouds, its faint signal carrying home the very first direct report from within the largest planet of them all. No craft before or since has ever sent word from inside another giant planet's clouds. And so, for a single hour on one December day, humanity heard the voice of Jupiter from within, a faint and fleeting whisper carried home across the dark. The 171st fact is that the Galileo probe survived its descent into Jupiter for about 58 minutes, transmitting its measurements all the while, before the growing heat and pressure finally overwhelmed it. A brief but triumphant journey, less than a single hour spent falling into the giant. In that short time, it gathered knowledge no other craft ever had. 58 minutes was all the giant allowed even our sturdiest machine. A gentle reminder of just how fierce and unforgiving the deep atmosphere of Jupiter truly is, even to the finest instruments we have ever built. The 172nd fact is that in those 58 minutes, the Galileo probe descended only about 150 kilometers into Jupiter's atmosphere, reaching a pressure of around 22 times that at the Earth's surface before it fell silent, a mere scratch upon the surface of a fall that, to the core, would span nearly 70,000 kilometers. The probe touched only the shallowest skin of the giant. Yet even that thin sliver of the descent was a triumph, the deepest any craft has ever gone, a hard-won glimpse into a world of almost boundless depth beneath. To imagine the scale, picture the whole explored depth as a single sheet of paper laid upon the surface of a giant beach ball. That is how thin a slice of Jupiter we have ever truly touched, with all the vast interior still hidden far below. The 173rd fact is that by the time the Galileo probe fell silent, the temperature around it had climbed to roughly 150 degrees Celsius, hot enough to overwhelm its systems, and the pressure had grown to more than 20 times that at Earth's surface, conditions that ended its brief and gallant descent. It was crushed and cooked by the deepening giant, just as any traveler would be. The probe's final measurements marked the limit of all our direct knowledge of Jupiter's interior, the deepest point from which any real report has ever been sent home to Earth. The 174th fact is that the Galileo probe, in its final moments, would have continued to sink even after falling silent, its remains carried ever deeper into the giant, crushed and melted and at last dissolved into the vast hydrogen atmosphere, sinking through the very layers of our imagined fall, becoming, in time, a part of Jupiter itself. The little machine that fell into the giant never truly stopped falling. Its substance joined the endless gas, mingling forever with the world it had been sent to study, a small and gentle addition to the immense and swirling body of the largest planet of them all. In a quiet way, the little probe is falling still, its atoms mingled forever with the giant's endless gas. the only traveler from Earth ever to descend into Jupiter, drifting on within it through the long and patient ages to come. The 175th fact is that the Galileo probe made a surprising discovery as it fell, for it found far less water in Jupiter's atmosphere than scientists had expected. Though this was likely because, by chance, it descended into an unusually dry and clear region, a kind of desert in the clouds sometimes called a hot spot. The giant proved more varied than imagined, a gentle lesson that even a single brave descent can surprise us, and that Jupiter's atmosphere is not uniform but richly varied, with dry places and wet, all hidden beneath its calm and banded face. The 176th fact is that the Galileo probe also found that Jupiter's winds grew even stronger as it descended below the clouds, rather than fading away, revealing that the giant's mighty winds are not merely driven by sunlight at the surface but reach deep into the planet, powered by its inner heat. The discovery hinted at the deep-reaching jets later confirmed by Juno. A single falling probe thus taught us that Jupiter's storms are rooted far below what we can see, their power welling up from the giant's own hidden and enormous depths. The 177th fact is that the Galileo orbiter, the larger spacecraft that had carried and listened to the little probe, eventually made its own deliberate plunge into Jupiter, sent to burn up in the giant's atmosphere on the 21st of September, 2003. A chosen ending, to keep it from ever crashing onto the moon Europa and disturbing its hidden ocean. The faithful orbiter followed its probe into the giant, and so both parts of the Galileo mission came to rest within Jupiter itself, given gently to the world they had studied so long and so well. The 178th fact is that because of the Galileo probe, the deepest we have ever directly reached into Jupiter is only about 150 kilometers, the merest sliver of a planet nearly 70,000 kilometers deep. So that all the layers below, the deep atmosphere, the supercritical fluid, the metallic ocean, and the core remain forever beyond our direct sight. We have touched only the outermost skin of the giant. Everything deeper is known only through physics and careful thought. A vast hidden interior mapped by the mind alone, still waiting quietly in the dark. The 179th fact is that all the deep layers of our imagined fall, everything below that thin explored sliver, are known to us only through models, through careful reasoning about how hydrogen behaves under great heat and pressure, and through the giant's gravity and magnetism measured from afar. So that the deep interior of Jupiter is a landscape built by science and imagination together. We have never seen it, and perhaps never will, and yet, through patient thought, we can drift through it gently, as we have tonight, trusting the quiet work of many careful minds. The 180th fact is that so the honest answer to our question, how long could anyone survive falling into Jupiter, is gentle and humbling. Only minutes and never more than the shallowest reaches, for the giant guards its depths with cold and heat and crushing weight and deadly radiation, allowing no living thing to make the journey we have imagined. And yet, in the safety of the mind, we have fallen all the way to the core. So let us leave the hard truths behind now, and drift, in these last quiet moments, gently back into wonder and towards sleep. The 181st fact is that though no one could ever truly fall into Jupiter and live, there is something wonderful in the very act of imagining it, of letting the mind drift down through layers no eye will ever see. For imagination lets us visit places forever closed to the body. Tonight, in thought alone, you have descended through clouds and storms, through fluid and metal, to the giant's ancient heart. A journey made not with any vessel, but with the gentle wandering of a quiet and wondering mind, safe and unharmed, here in the soft dark of the night. The 182nd fact is that in imagination we may go where no body ever could, drifting weightless and unharmed through the fiercest places in all the solar system. And there is a deep comfort in this, that the mind can wander freely where the flesh cannot follow. The giant that would crush any traveler in minutes has welcomed you gently tonight, layer by layer, and now, having reached its heart in thought, you may drift just as gently back outward, or simply rest here in the deep, letting the vast calm of the giant carry you softly towards sleep. The 183rd fact is that Jupiter is ancient beyond all human reckoning, formed some 4.5 billion years ago and turning quietly ever since, long before there was any Earth as we know it, any ocean, any life, any watcher to wonder at it. A patient giant, older than nearly everything. It has kept its slow vigil in the outer dark across almost unimaginable stretches of time, and it will go on turning calm and vast, long after this night has passed and been forgotten, a steady and ancient presence in the quiet of the deep. The 184th fact is that in all the long ages of its life, Jupiter has circled the Sun only a few 100 million times, for each of its great slow years lasts nearly 12 of ours. So that even the swift passage of a single human life is but the faintest flicker beside the giant's patient orbit. It has drifted around the Sun with unhurried grace since before the first living things stirred on Earth. A gentle reminder, as you rest, of how vast and slow the great motions of the heavens truly are, and how softly they carry on night after quiet night. The 185th fact is that Jupiter, with its enormous gravity, has long acted as a kind of gentle guardian for the inner solar system, drawing in or flinging away many wandering comets and asteroids that might otherwise have crossed our path, so that the giant we have fallen into is also, in its way, a quiet protector of our small blue world. It shepherds the debris of the solar system with its mighty pull, and its gravity holds a great swarm of asteroids in step with its own orbit, gathered ahead of it and behind it in two gentle crowds, quiet companions kept in place by the giant's patient hand. A comforting thought that the same vast giant of our imagined fall watches, in its own way, over the little Earth where you now rest. The 186th fact is that far above the depths we have drifted through, Jupiter's calm and beautiful bands are turning still, their creams and golds and soft browns wheeling slowly around the giant just as they have for ages. A serene and lovely face, unchanged by all our imagining. The storms drift on, the winds flow in their ancient channels. The great red spot turns patiently in the southern sky, a whole world of gentle, endless motion, carrying on quietly in the outer dark, whether we watch it or drift off softly into sleep beneath its distant, steady glow. The 187th fact is that the great storms of Jupiter, the ancient red spot and its swirling kin, will outlast not only this night but perhaps many human lifetimes, turning on for centuries as they always have, patient tempests, indifferent to our brief and hurried days. There is a strange peace in this, in knowing that some things turn so slowly and endure so long, that while we rest and rise and rest again, the great storms of the giant simply go on, calm and vast, keeping their slow and timeless vigil far away in the quiet dark. The 188th fact is that Jupiter is made of the very same hydrogen and helium that fills the stars, the same simple elements that were forged in the earliest moments of the universe itself, so that the giant we have fallen into is woven from the most ancient and abundant stuff there is. The clouds and the deep metallic sea alike are built from the elements of the cosmos, a quiet wonder that the largest planet and the brightest star are kin, both made of the same primordial substance, drifting together through the same vast and patient dark. The 189th fact is that beside the immensity of Jupiter, the Earth is a small and gentle thing, and we who live upon it smaller still, and yet we are made of the same kind of matter, the same atoms, the same star-born stuff as the giant, so that we are not truly separate from it, but kin across the enormous dark. The same cosmos that built the giant built the quiet body in which you rest tonight. A gentle thought that for all its vastness, Jupiter is a distant relative, and the whole universe a single family of matter and light. The 190th fact is that the small brave machines we have sent to Jupiter, the pioneers and voyagers Galileo and Juno, have been but the briefest of visitors to so ancient and vast a world. Fleeting travelers, glimpsing the giant for a handful of years before falling silent or drifting on. And yet, through their patient eyes, we have come to know Jupiter as never before, a gentle testament to human curiosity that we should send such tiny messengers so far, simply to understand a little more of the great turning world in the deep. The 191st fact is that for all we have learned, the deep interior of Jupiter remains largely a mystery, its metallic ocean and ancient core known only through careful thought, never truly seen, so that the giant still keeps most of its secrets, hidden beneath thousands of kilometers of cloud and fluid and metal. There is something wonderful in this, in a world that still holds so much unknown, a reminder that the universe is full of mysteries yet to ponder, gentle puzzles to drift toward in wonder, night after quiet night, without ever any need to solve them all at once. The 192nd fact is that in all our imagining tonight, we have chosen wonder over fear, drifting gently through a world that would, in truth, be fierce and deadly, and finding in it not terror but beauty and awe. For the giant, for all its crushing depths, is a thing of breathtaking grandeur. There is no need to fear the great dark places of the cosmos, only to wonder at them from the safety of a warm and quiet night. And so we let the fall become not a fright but a lullaby, a gentle drifting into the deep and beautiful unknown. The 193rd fact is that the slow and endless drift downward through Jupiter, layer by gentle layer, is not so very different from the soft descent into sleep itself. The gradual letting go, the deepening quiet, the sinking gently into a warm and welcoming dark. As the traveler drifts down through the giant, so you may drift down now into rest, releasing the day, layer by layer, sinking softly past every worry and every waking thought, into the calm and dreamless deep where nothing at all is needed of you but to rest. The 194th fact is that as you lie here now, you may let the layers of the giant pass gently through your mind one last time. The frozen ammonia clouds, the racing bands, the ancient red storm, the clear deep air, the supercritical sea, the vast ocean of gleaming metal, and the blazing silent core, each one a step deeper into calm. Let each layer carry you a little further from the noise of the day, drifting down and down through the great gentle giant and down at last into sleep. The 195th fact is that there is nothing at all you need to hold on to now, no thought to keep, no worry to carry, no effort to make. Only the soft and weightless drifting, gentle as a feather settling through still and endless dark. Like a traveler falling slowly into Jupiter, you may simply let go, and let the descent carry you, releasing everything, sinking softly into the warm and quiet deep, held gently on every side by the calm of the night, with nowhere to be and nothing to do but rest. The 196th fact is that far away in the outer dark, the great giant keeps on turning, whether we watch it or not, its calm bands wheeling and its ancient storms drifting on through the long and patient night, indifferent, serene, and utterly at peace. And you, here listening, are a small and quiet part of the same vast and gentle cosmos, made of the same star stuff, held in the same great dark. There is nothing to fear and nothing to do, only to rest beneath the distant, steady turning of the giant far above. The 197th fact is that as you drift now towards sleep, imagine Jupiter's calm bands still turning softly far away, creams and golds wheeling slowly in the deep and open dark. A great and gentle world, turning patiently while you rest. Somewhere out in the dark tonight, the real Jupiter is doing exactly this, its clouds wheeling, its storms drifting, its deep metallic sea churning silently far below. entirely unaware of us and yet somehow a comfort all the same. You need not fall into it any longer. You have already drifted to its heart and back in the quiet of your mind. And now you may simply float here, weightless and at ease, letting the giant's slow and ancient calm settle gently over you like a warm and welcome blanket in the night. The 198th fact is that far below the clouds, the great red storm turns slowly on, as it has for centuries and will for centuries more, patient and vast and utterly unhurried. A reminder that some things move so gently and endure so long that there is never any need to rush. Let your breathing slow to match that ancient, unhurried turning. Let each breath grow softer and deeper than the last, drifting in time with the slow and timeless motion of the giant, sinking ever gentler toward the deep and dreamless calm of sleep. The 199th fact is that you are safe here, warm and held and utterly at peace, while the great giant drifts far away in the quiet dark, turning softly beneath its distant, steady glow. And there is nothing at all left for you to do tonight but rest. The long fall is over, the story is nearly told, and the calm of the cosmos has settled gently all around you. So let your body grow heavy and soft, let your thoughts drift slow and dim, and let yourself sink, weightless and untroubled, into the deep and welcoming dark of sleep. The 200th fact is that as you drift now into sleep, the great giant Jupiter turns on far above, calm and vast and ancient, its gentle bands wheeling slowly through the endless dark, keeping its patient vigil while you rest. A serene and beautiful world to carry softly into your dreams. You have fallen gently through all its layers tonight, from the frozen clouds to the blazing heart, and now you may simply let go and drift and rest. Rest now, sleep well, and thank you for drifting with me beyond the stars.